The Seattle Seahawks suffered their first loss of the 2024 season on Monday Night Football to the Detroit Lions. And welcome back to another episode of the Seattle Sports Show, where we love Seattle pro sports. I'm your host, Mikey. And today we are here to talk about the loss on Monday Night Football to the Detroit Lions. And wow, what a fun game this one was to watch. A tough matchup. We knew it was going to be tough. And we were hoping that we'd be able to pull out the win on this. As I said, I was hoping that Mike McDonald's defense was going to be able to get to Jared Goff, who has not looked spectacular this season up to this point. And that this would be, kind of a definitely not low scoring, but not high scoring, maybe like a medium scoring game. But that was definitely not the case. The defense could not stop the Detroit Lions and Jared Goff today, who was perfect today. Didn't have one incompletion for the entire game. And we end up losing this one. The other thing I was looking for us to get a win in this one was a turnover. Was for this defense to create a turnover or two, perhaps, and that would get us a couple extra possessions and get us a couple extra scores and get us a win. That did not happen for us either. In fact, the Lions were the only ones who created a turnover today, forcing DK Metcalf to fumble the ball, and they were able to score a touchdown off of that. First time that's happened this season to the Seahawks, where they've had a turnover and then allowed a touchdown on the next on the team, the opposing team's possession right after. So yeah, that was pretty costly as well. Again, not one that I am upset about, though. I mean, DK was fighting for yards. He was breaking tackles, and that was just the perfect hit to knock the ball loose on the play where he fumbled that ball. So you can't really look at that one and say any big time mistake was made there, other than that he could have had two hands on the ball while he was fighting for those yards. Maybe that would have helped secure it a little bit more. But that is the thing when you are fighting for yards, some of those things break down. When you see a running back spin, go for a stiff arm, try to make a juke move, the fundamentals of just protecting the ball, they break down a little bit. And DK there, he was running people over, trucking people, spinning around, and the ball just was in a position where it could be knocked loose, and it was. Overall, I'm just not upset. Again, going into this game, we were missing 5 key defenders. The entirety of our defensive line gone. One of your starting linebackers, who's been very important to your success so far this season, gone. Again, when you're down 5 of your defensive front, that's going to be tough. And don't know. It's just hard to be too upset about this one, because as unsuccessful as they were defensively, they were successful offensively, and um, they never gave up. The fight was always there, even on defense. Even though they weren't, successful on defense, the fight was there. You could see that the fire was there, the desire was there. It wasn't that they were playing, half-assed and not out of position and doing a bad job in that way. It just, the Lions, they outdid you, you know. So, I mean, I just we couldn't get the pressure there. That is, that's the biggest thing, right? I mean, that's where games are won, or in the trenches. And our offensive line is already beat up this year, already not great to begin with, right? And then you're dealing with injuries to players that you would uh, like to be starting. You're down to your third string right tackle, you know, and they weren't really getting the push early on that they needed to get the running game going, right? So that made it tough. And then again, defensively, on the defensive line, again, you're missing five men from your defensive front, and you just, they weren't able to create the kind of pressure that you would have needed to get to, to get on Jared Goff to be able to, you know, throw him off his game like you were hoping you were going to be able to do in this one. I think with the amount of time that he had to assess what was going on with the defense, it didn't matter. Um, you know, the scheme that Mike McDonald runs, and the way he likes to disguise his scheme, because the performance just wasn't there. You weren't able to get the pressure to force quick decisions and force mistakes in reading the coverage, because Jared Goff was able to sit back there and go 18 for 18 for 292 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. We did get a few sacks. Still, we sacked him 3 times, but he had a perfect quarterback rating, 155.8. So you're or the 158.3 or whatever. You can't allow that kind of performance and expect that you're gonna win the game, right? That's just hard to deal with. When the opposing quarterback is just playing that perfectly, and again, he was able to do so just because we weren't getting the type of pressure that we had been getting in the previous 3 games. But again, you can attribute a lot of that to being Leonard Williams being out, Byron Murphy being out, Boye Mafe being out, Uchenna Nwosu still not being able to play, and Jerome Baker not playing in this one either. So again, you had one guy who was already out throughout the season, and then 4 new guys that were not able to play in this game. So, given all that, I'm just not too upset. And in fact, I'm encouraged by what I saw, because the fight and the desire was always there. And when you get all 4 or 5 of these guys back, you feel like, okay, you've shown that you have good depth when you have the rest of your players in there, who should all be coming back, hopefully in this next game. You know, again, like I said, it was going to be tough with our defensive line so beat up, and the defensive front in general so beat up because they have a good rushing attack. Gibbs had 78 yards on the ground today. Montgomery had 40 yards. You know, we gave up 3 touchdowns on the ground. Again, that's not, that's not a recipe for winning football either. Um, again, they were perfect passing today. In fact, because Amon-Ra St. Brown threw a pass, so he was 1 for 1. So they were a perfect 19 for 19 passing as a team total today. We gave up that long reception to Jamison Williams, that 70-yard touchdown. Again, there was a few of these big chunk plays, a 30-yarder to Sam Laporta, a 29-yarder to Tim Patrick, a 40-yarder to David Montgomery. There was big chunk plays that we were giving up, which is again something that Mike McDonald does not usually like to have happen to him, right? And again, it just was the pressure from the defensive front wasn't there to be able to force Goff into making any bad decisions or anything. So, unfortunately, those big gains were given up. I mean, we did perform offensively ourselves. Again, you have to be encouraged coming out of this game, seeing career highs in completions and attempts from Geno Smith, 38 for 56 for 395 yards, a touchdown, had 1 interception as well. But he looked poised out there, as Mike McDonald was saying. It looked like he was, that he had what it takes to score. If this game was going to keep going, I believe that this team could have kept scoring. Like, this could have been just back and forth all night long. And Gino is going to be up to the task of doing everything he could to keep this team in it. I mean, again, our rushing attack, not great. I mean, K9, he ends up with 80 yards total, 3 touchdowns, and that's going to look good. But it didn't really have consistency throughout the game, especially in the beginning of the game. The first half. Maybe this game looks a lot different if we were able to get the running game going in the first half. But we weren't able to do that at all. Again, having a big 28-yard chunk play kind of helps add to the totals. So, we end up with, as a team, Walker had 80, Gino had 38, Charbonnet had 15. So for a total of 133, which is not a bad total, right? In fact, it's more than what the Lions had, who had 116. But it just wasn't consistent like the Lions running game was. Again, a couple of chunk plays from Walker really add to that total, but just not consistent. Again, because of that offensive line, not really getting any push. And I think you can go back and look throughout the rest of the season and see that has been an issue. Everybody was pointing to the first game where K9 was out, and Charbonnet only had like 36 yards or something. But that's what that's what we're dealing with. Up at halftime, we had only had like a dozen yards rushing. Again, everything really came together in the second half of this game. Otherwise, it didn't look It didn't look great. Again, uh, through the air, it looked fine, and that's what we were expecting in this game because the Lions have not been great in coverage this year. I mean, Metcalf was able to get 7 receptions for 104 yards, Lockett 5 for 61, Smith and Jigba 8 for 51, Charbonnet had 5 for 39, K9 had 4 for 36, Bobo had 3 for 30, Barner had 2 for 27 in his first touchdown of his career. Um, we there was no fan had 2 for 26, Chenault 1 for 18, Farrell Brown 1 for 3. You know, uh, it again through the air looked fine. In fact, that was what was having success in this game. And watching Gino, he looked like he was comfortable back there and comfortable with you know leading this team uh to compete in this game. uh yeah, it just was not at the end of the day. The Lions, I think they were just a little bit better than you. Again, they won by 13, but this game didn't really feel like it was that big of a gap. It more felt like uh what was going on here was just our team being beat up in so many key spots. And that's football. Unfortunately, that's going to happen sometimes. There's going to be weeks where you have a lot of players injured, and that was us this week. And it really hurt us. In my mind, as a Seahawks fan, I'd like to think this game looks a lot different with Mafe, with Leonard Williams, with Byron Murphy II, with all of them in there. Yeah, I think this game looks a lot different. Uh, but unfortunately, that's not the case. And what we can do here is just look at it and say, hey, even without all those pieces, we were in the fight until the very end. Uh, so again, you just got to feel good about this team, and you got to say, hey, when we see the Lions in the playoffs, we're gonna be ready for them, because this team is. Uh, Again, I know it's coming after a loss, but after what we've seen in the first 3 wins and now in our first loss, I don't know how you can watch this team and not, whatever your expectations were. A lot of us had them, just above 500, right? But I don't know how you could watch what we've seen in the first 4 weeks here and not raise your expectations. Now I don't just look at this team and say this is a fringe playoff team. I look at this team, I look at the performance, I look at the players, and I say this is a playoff team. This team should be in the playoffs, especially looking around what's going on in our division right now. The the Rams, you think our team's beat up? That team, wow, they just do they have any healthy players? They're they're gonna have a real hard year this year with all the things that they're dealing with. Um, the the rumors of uh the Cardinals, great rise were greatly exaggerated. I have no idea why so many people had the Cardinals finishing second place in this division before the season started, but so many people did. I still have no idea why. Never understood it. You can watch what's been going on this season, and I mean, I don't know how that was ever the case. but both of those teams struggling. And then the 49ers, they have all kinds of things going on, right? I mean, they've been at top of the division now for 5 years straight, right? Going to so many NFC championships games, going to multiple Super Bowls, but losing in all of those. And that's starting to pile up, and windows only stay open for so long. And we could see the start of, I'm not saying their window is closed, but maybe it's no longer as wide open as it was. So there's some things to take advantage of this year in this division, and I see no reason why you're not making the playoffs. I mean, wild card at the very least. And again, with the way the rest of this division is going, the way this rest of this division is beat up, and losing so much talent, while you still have a lot of talent on your team and they're still performing at a high level, I don't know why you wouldn't set your expectations to the point where you think that this team could potentially win this division. Again, the 49ers, they are not going to go away. They are still a very talented roster. But so is the Seahawks team, and we've seen it in the wins and even now a loss. So I think that's my new expectation, is that this team is not just getting into the wild cards with 9 wins, but they can get 10, 11 wins, and perhaps win this division. So that's kind of my thoughts, even coming after a loss. I'd love to know your thoughts. How are you feeling after this one? Were you feeling like this was an entertaining game, that the Seahawks were in the fight the entire time? Do you feel that same way? I don't know, because the score says they lost by 13, so maybe they weren't. But again, to me, I like, for the majority of this game, it did not feel like the Seahawks were out of it. Again, they went down 14 points fast, but once the offense got going, it really felt like they could get right back in it, and win this game at any point up until the end, where the time ran out. All right, so yeah, let me know what you thought, and leave me those comments, hit the subscribe button, and thanks for listening to the Seattle Sports Show, where we watch Legends Awaken. So take cover, because with this sea of sound, you'll see us rise to reign supreme and win forever. Go Hawks.